Hello, hey everyone, what's up? Today I'm going to be doing a stream about Unit 2 Practice FRQ. But first, I want everyone to drop an emoji of how they're feeling right now. So if you're feeling happy, sad, whatever, just drop an emoji. I just want to see how you guys are doing before we get into the stream. Sebastian has the crying emoji. I feel that. And then Sabika, is that laughing or smiling? Okay, Marvin has the party emoji. Cool. Okay, smile. That's what I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure. That's good. It's always good to smile. Why crying, Sebastian? And then T Sizzle has the upside down. I feel that one too. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Well, I'm going to get started now then. So, hello everyone again. I just want to get introduced to everyone here. So I'm going to be starting the stream now. All right, great. Excitement. That's great. That's always great. Okay, because you'll learn a lot today about how to write a good FRQ. Okay, so first, don't forget to follow @ThinkFiveable on Twitter and follow on Instagram, and then don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. All right, cool. So just some upcoming things that are happening with Fiveable and the AP Psychology team is that on October 14th at 8 p.m., Dr. Mold will be streaming Principles of Sensation and Perception. And then Megan Rivola will be streaming Visual Anatomy and Perception October 21st at 8 p.m. So be sure to keep a lookout on those so you can be here to watch them at Fiveable. Okay, great. So in this stream, we're going to cover three things. We're going to cover what is an FRQ, just in case you don't know what they are or not familiar with them because you haven't taken another AP Social Science or never done them before. I know they have some in other AP subjects, but if you've never taken an AP class or AP Social Science, I'm going to go into what an FRQ is. I'm also going to go into how to write an FRQ, which is very important to score well on the AP Psychology exam because multiple choice is only like 33%. So to score well on the AP Psychology exam, you have to know how to write a really good FRQ. And then lastly is the fun part. We're going to actually do a practice FRQ to test out and see what you guys have learned and how well you can write an FRQ. So that'll be at the end. But now I'm going to go into what an FRQ is. Okay, so just some background about the FRQ. So the FRQ means free response question. And for AP Psychology, the free response question is worth 33.3% of the overall exam score. So sorry about the 33% I said earlier for multiple choice. I meant this for the FRQ. Multiple choice is worth more. But still, 33% is a lot of the overall exam. So if you don't do well on the FRQ, that can be the difference between a 5 and a 4 or a 4 and a 3. So you really want to nail the FRQ when you take this exam. Oh, and be sure to register too because this year is an earlier registration for all AP exams. I think for my school it's like in November or something, so be on the lookout for that so you don't miss and have to pay late fees. Oh, and then lastly, the FRQ has 7 parts or 7 questions. And remember, an FRQ is not an essay. You don't need to have an introduction. You don't need to have a conclusion. You just need to really answer the question. And I'll go into specifics about how to answer the question later. But just remember, you are not writing an essay. This is not AP Lang or AP Lit. You are just answering the questions and applying. But I'll get into that in a little bit. Oh, and also, you have 50 minutes to answer, to answer 2 FRQs, which have like 7 parts each, which is not an easy feat. And if your classroom doesn't have a clock, I recommend bringing a watch. When I took the AP psychology exam, I brought a personal watch. And the College Board says you're allowed to have a watch as long as it doesn't make any noise or anything like that. So I got a watch with no beeper, and I used that and set it for 50 minutes and use this so I can keep track of how much time I had left on the FRQ. And that helped me out so much, knowing how much time I had left. I could really like pace and get that all taken care of and get it done within the time frame. So I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend getting a digital watch with no sound. It's very helpful, not even for this AP test, but for all tests, just to know how much time you have. Does anyone else use a watch? I always have to use a watch when I take any AP test. Okay, next. Now we're going to go into how to actually write an FRQ. And can everyone see the board and hear everything okay? I just want to check in and make sure that everyone can hear fine. If not, just let me know. If you can't see anything, just let me know. All right, cool. So now I'm going to go into how to write an FRQ. So first I'm going to go into the do's of what to do when you're writing an FRQ. So the first do is write with a pen, because this is just a College Board rule. Don't bring a pencil. You must write with a pen when doing the FRQ. And if you make a mistake, just put a line through the word and continue. So yeah, make sure you have a pen. And then secondly, do write in complete sentences. Even though the FRQ is not an essay, you want to make sure that you write in complete sentences to make your answers as clear as possible. You don't want to give the graders any reason to not count your sentence. So write in complete sentences. And then thirdly, respond to the prompt in order. So first question to last. Don't go out of order because the grader might get confused. Then they might get a little bit angry and not score you well on the FRQ. So make sure that you go first to last when answering the questions on the FRQ. And make sure to skip a line after each question that you answer, because once again, it makes it easier for the grader to grade your FRQ. It makes everything clearer and more organized when you skip a line. So don't forget to do that as well. Okay, now I'm going to go into what not to do on the AP Psychology FRQ. So you don't want to write a conclusion or introduction. Like I said earlier, this is not AP Lang or AP Lit. You don't need to write an essay, so do not write a conclusion or introduction. Also, don't spend too much time on explaining terms you don't understand or terms you're not sure about. Just move on and do the question that you have time for. And in the end, if you have time to do the ones you didn't know, go back. Like I said earlier, having a watch helps so much to know how much time you have to spend on certain questions. So if you don't have a watch though, and don't be stuck on a question that you don't know or a term that you don't know. Just move on to the ones you do know, because you don't want to lose points because you didn't have time to answer all the questions. So make sure you get all the questions that you know done in time. Yeah, so that's why I recommend a watch again. It's just so helpful to have a watch. Okay, so I have this little acronym to help you remember to write an FRQ. You can pronounce it IDA, EDA, IDA. I don't know. I like to say EDA, but you can also say IDA or whatever you want to say to help you remember it. But anyway, the I stands for identify, and this means to identify topics and concepts in the questions. And the FRQ is going to ask you about certain topics and questions. And the first thing you want to do is identify those topics and questions. And you want to identify those topics and concepts in the questions. And then secondly, D. D stands for define. Once you have identified the certain topics and concepts in the question, you want to define them. That is the first step you take when answering an FRQ. So you see the topic, you see the concept, great. Do you understand what they mean? Great. So now you need to define them using in the question and form definitions for those topics and concepts that they give you. Lastly, A. You want to apply the concept or topic that you just defined. Don't just define it and be done with it. No, because you're not going to get credit for that. You have to define it and also give further analysis of why it works. Apply that term to the situation. they're going to give you a situation, and you need to apply that term that they give you to the specific situation in the problem. And I'll go into more detail about that later as well once we do the practice FRQ. But just make sure that you also apply the term and not just define it. Does that make sense so far to everyone? What I mean, if anyone has any questions, just let me know about how to answer it. But yeah, just remember to identify the topics, define the topics and concepts, and then also to apply what you just defined to the given situation. All right, good tips, great. I'm glad you think they're good tips. Thank you. Okay, so if everyone understands, I will move on now. Okay, so here are just some more success tips for the FRQ, because I told you how to actually write the FRQ, but here are just some more tips to help you be successful. So make sure you actually know the content, because they're going to give you specific topics and concepts. So study all the topics and concepts you learn throughout AP Psychology, because there may be one on the test where you're like, oh man, I remember learning that, but I just can't remember what it was. So make sure you nail yourself with the topics and concepts and you know all of them, because they'll put some really random ones from like all throughout different semester or different quarters to sort of get you. So make sure you know all your topics and concepts. Make sure you know all your vocabulary and all your key theories and key concepts so you can do well. Okay, so now we're going to go into the practice FRQ. So before we actually dive into practicing the FRQ, does anyone have any questions about anything so far on how to answer it? Because now we're going to put those skills that I just taught you what to do, now we're going to put them to the test and see if you can actually write an FRQ successfully. All right, great. Okay, so now I'm going to read the FRQ problem. So, Harlow was in a very unfortunate car accident during which she sustained a head injury. Days later, when her family was with her in the hospital room, they had a conference with her neurologist, who informed her that there was some brain injury sustained. So remember the acronym again when answering this. So part A says, pretend that you are her neurologist and discuss what functional impacts might result from an injury to the following parts of her brain. So we have the hippocampus, the cerebellum, and Broca's area. Okay, great. So we see these topics here, which are 3 different parts of the brain. So that's the first step, is to identify. Then we have to define each of these words, and then we will apply them to this situation here about Harlow and her head injury. Okay, so just to make sure you know the different parts, here's the hippocampus right here. And does anyone know what the hippocampus does? No, it's not balance. All right, yes, memory. That is absolutely correct. It's involved in memory formation. And more specifically, it's involved in the formation of long-term memory. So yes, that's what the hippocampus does. What about the cerebellum? Does anyone know what the cerebellum controls? Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to go to that one. I see balance, voluntary movement, fine motor coordination. Yes, that is absolutely correct. Coordination is what, fine motor movements and coordination is what the cerebellum controls. And then the last brain part that the question asks about is Broca's area. And does anyone know what Broca's area does? Okay, I see. Produces speech production, and speech formation. Those are absolutely correct. That's what Broca's area controls, is speech production and formation. So, okay, cool. So you see how easy that was? We define the terms, and then, we identify the terms, and then we define them. So now we can apply them. So here I just have, what does the hippocampus do? Well, it's involved in establishing long-term memory, such as declarative memories, like we said earlier. And remember that declarative memories are memories that can be recalled, like facts, like knowing how tall the Eiffel Tower is, or how long a bee can fly for without taking a rest, or any other random facts like that. That's all declarative memory. And then so now this question asked about what may happen if the hippocampus was injured. So what do you think would happen if the hippocampus was injured, now that we know what the hippocampus does? Okay, so T Sizzle says Harlow would be unable to form long-term memories. Nicole says her memory will be impacted. Marvin says memory loss. And then we see others, trouble producing and retaining long-term memories, facts, ideas, and her memory will be impaired. All right, so all those answers are great. That is exactly what would happen. Her memory she would definitely have a hard time forming long-term memories, is a major one. And she may suffer some memory loss, but the main part is that she will be unable to form long-term memories and have trouble keeping those. Well, basically that's what form means. So yeah, she would have trouble forming and keeping those long-term memories into the long term. All right, cool. So now let's do cerebellum. Now that we know that cerebellum controls fine motor movements, what may happen if the head injury caused her to damage her cerebellum? So Nicole says she may have a hard time moving certain parts since the cerebellum controls coordination. Okay, does anyone else have any ideas of what may happen? I'll give you a few moments to answer. So T Sizzle says Harlow may have muscle spasms or be able to move certain parts of her body altogether. Marvin says her balance and coordination would be affected and unable to have proper balance. And then Sabiha says she may not be able to move certain parts of her body. May not be able to move certain parts of her body at the same time. Okay, so all those answers have to do with movement. So great. Remember that the cerebellum controls movement. And yes, because that part of her head would be injured, or that part of her brain would be injured, she would have trouble with basic coordination. Like she might not be able to walk as well as she would have before the incident or anything. Or she may not be able to move parts of her body as well. So yes, I'll go to that part. Oh, so I just want to go back to the hippocampus real quickly, sorry, and say that, so on the test, a sample answer for how you would answer that question would be, the hippocampus is needed to form long-term memories. Therefore, if Harlow suffered damage to her hippocampus in the future, she would be unable to form new and long-term memories. So that's the answer for that one. And then for this one, yes, damage to the cerebellum would cause a loss in coordination, and her movements will also be much slower because of that. So a sample answer on the test is that you could say, the cerebellum is located above the brainstem. It is involved in motor control and balance as well as subtle movement. If Harlow damaged her cerebellum, she would have trouble with coordination. She won't be able to walk as easily as she has before the incident, and her body movements will also be much slower. So that would be full credit on the AP exam if you answered it in that way, because we identified here the cerebellum, we defined it by saying that it's above the brainstem and it's involved in motor control and balance, and then we applied it to the situation by describing what would happen to Harlow if her cerebellum was damaged in a head injury. Does that make sense to everyone so far? Is that clear on how to answer it and how we did those two before I go into the last one? All right, cool. So I see a yes from Nicole. Everyone else? Okay, I see a thumbs up. All right, great. So now we can go into the last brain part, which was Broca's area. So I'll go back to that slide. Oop. My bad, is this here? Okay, yeah. So now, we went over the definition of Broca's area. So what do you think would happen to Harlow if Broca's area was damaged? All right, so from Sabiha, I see poor word formation. From Marvin, I see the Broca's area will be affected and Harlow would have difficulty producing speech and forming words. Nicole says she may have trouble with her speech. T Sizzle says Harlow would have speech impediment. Sebastian says difficulty with communicating with others. Oh, and Nicole adds on that it would take a long time. And then Jerry says issues forming words, possible aphasia. All right, so those are all the answers, and they're all absolutely correct, especially the aphasia part. There's actually a condition called Broca's aphasia when the Broca's area is damaged, so great answer. And also about the difficulty producing speech and forming words, that is true. She would definitely have difficulty producing speech and forming words, and her speech will also take much longer time because she wouldn't be able to find the words to say things. So that's absolutely true. And yes, because it would take such a long time, you're absolutely right, Sebastian. She would have difficulty communicating with others because it would be hard for her to find the words to say things in certain situations. So that's absolutely true. So now I'm going to give you guys a trick question just to add on to this. So you all mentioned that she would have trouble with her speech production, but what about her comprehension? How would her comprehension be affected by damage to Broca's area? And this is just to test your knowledge on the brain anatomy to see if you understand. All right, great. So Sebastian says comprehension wouldn't be damaged. It's not Wernicke's area. Her comprehension wouldn't be affected because that is Wernicke's area, also says T Sizzle. All right, great. So you guys can fall for the trick. You absolutely know your brain anatomy, which is great. You're all going to do well on the AP exam. So yes, that is true. Her comprehension would not be affected because this is Broca's area, not Wernicke's area. And then here again, I just broke it down again to tell you to identify and define. So I put the definition of Broca's area, which is that it controls speech production and language composition. Then I mentioned what would happen, which we discussed, is that it will result in Broca's aphasia, which someone said earlier. I believe it was, who said it? Well, it was Jerry, yes. So someone mentioned Broca's aphasia, great, and that means, but people with Broca's aphasia still can't comprehend language, which is great. You guys can fall for the trick, and then, but yes, she would have trouble with speech production, and not only just producing speech, but producing grammatically correct speech. It would be all jumbled up, and the words just really wouldn't make much sense. So yes, they are unable to produce or find the right words to say in any given situation. So people with Broca's aphasia would have trouble communicating with others and have trouble speaking in time. It would take them a long time to speak. All right, so then I had the example answer of what would be full credit on the AP FRQ. So if you said this on the FRQ, that's full credit. If you say that Broca's area is responsible for speech production and language composition, if Harlow suffered damage to her Broca's area, she would suffer from Broca's aphasia, which would mean that she would have trouble producing speech and grammatical sentences. Therefore, but also she would still be able to comprehend language. So you see how you guys understand why that's a correct answer and why that's full credit? Because I identified the term, once again, Broca's area, then I defined it, and then I applied it. So just to make sure you understand the apply part, because that can be troublesome for some people, just to make sure you understand that part. How did I apply Broca's area to the situation? What did I do to apply it to the situation to get credit for that? So Nicole says, I said that if Harlow suffered damage. Jerry says, I refer back to the situation about the specifics to Harlow. And then T Sizzle says, I apply Broca's area by showing how it would be affected if Harlow were to have damage in the accident. So great, that is absolutely true. I applied it to the situation they gave me by saying, okay, well, I know what the term means. I can define it. But now I'm going to relate it to the situation you gave me by saying this is how she would be affected in her incident. So yeah, that is absolutely correct. That's what I did. And just to make sure, you have to do each part of the acronym I told you, the IDA. You can't do one or the other. There's no partial credit on the AP FRQ. You have to get all three parts correctly to get full credit. Well, there's only full credit. It's all or nothing. So in order to get a question correct, you have to do all three parts. You have to identify, you have to define, and then you have to apply. You can't just identify and define or apply and define. You have to do each part in order to get full credit for that question. So yeah, just to clarify, that's what you have to do. All right, great. So we answered part A. Congratulations. You guys did a great job with all those answers that you gave me. You're absolutely correct. So before I move on to part B, are there any questions or anything that anyone wants me to go over? Okay, I see a no. Great. Cool. I'll move on then to part B. Oh, and also I put the slide here because just in case anyone was confused about Wernicke's area, because some people get it confused with Broca's area, but I see that all of you here seem to know the difference, so that's great. So yeah, just remember that Wernicke's area is responsible for the comprehension of speech. So therefore, if Wernicke's area was damaged, it's the opposite of Broca's area. They would have trouble. They would have difficulty comprehending speech, but they would still be able to pronounce words and to form sentences, but they just wouldn't be able to comprehend when words and sentences are spoken to them. So that's Wernicke's aphasia. All right, it says, Jerry says Broca equals broken speech. That's a great way to remember it. I never thought of it that way, but that's a great way to remember it. That is amazing. Yeah, that is good. I like that. So everyone else in the chat, that's a good way to remember it. Broca equals broken speech. I'm trying to think of one for Wernicke's. It's probably hard to do one for that. I don't know. I can't think of one for this one. But if you know that one, you know that Wernicke's is the opposite. So that's fine. I don't understand how to say Wernicke. I'm pretty sure it's Wernicke with the V because I think the W, I think it's German, so the W's are pronounced like V's. So. Oh, oh, that's what I thought it was. So I was like, wait a minute, that kind of goes with this. That's what I thought. Because I was like, wait a minute, I don't understand comprehension. Yeah, that goes together. That makes sense. But also, some people don't know how to pronounce it, but cool. Yeah, I get it. That's great. Okay. So now we're going to go to part B. So it's the same situation. So Harlow, our teacher said to remember Broca's area with Broca my mouth. That's funny. That's great. My teachers never gave me any sort of acronym or any sort of great mnemonic to remember it. They just said, here, remember it. So that's cool that your teachers gave you those. Those are actually really funny. I like that. All right, so for the next situation, so Harlow was in a very unfortunate car accident, and she sustained a head injury. And then days later with her family in the hospital room, they had a conference with her and her neurologist, who informed her that there were some brain injuries sustained. Okay, so now part B. This is the question for part B. So part B says, a research psychologist is interested in finding out about behavior changes associated with head trauma. Explain which descriptive method would be the best choice for the psychologist to use when studying Harlow. So does everyone remember their descriptive methods? So once again, remember IDA. So here we're going to identify. So do that step. I kind of already said it, but do that step. What do you identify in a question that they want you to know? So the I. So identify concepts or topics. Does anybody see a concept or topic to be identified in this question? Okay, so Marvin says behavior changes. Louis, I'm not sure, sorry, how you pronounce your name, but you say research method. T Sizzle says the research method. Okay, all right, cool. And then Marvin also says research methods, and then Nicole says the different types of research methods. So everyone who said research method, congrats, you are correct. They want you to explain about the descriptive research method. So in this case, the thing to be identified is the part that says descriptive research method. Okay, so bam, we're done. That was the first. We're not done with the question, but we're done with the first part, which is to identify. We've identified the key concept or topic. Okay, so what's the next part? What do we do next after we identified? Anyone remember what's the next step to do after you identify? All right, great. Marvin says define. Nicole says define. Yep, that's absolutely correct. So go ahead, do that next step. Define descriptive research methods. I'll give you a hint. There are 3 types. And think about like what they do and what they serve to do when you're defining it. This one's a little bit more difficult, so if you don't remember, that's okay. I'll go over it, but just give it a try. Just see if you remember. Okay, so Sebastian says case study. Great. That may be one type, but that's not the definition for descriptive research methods, but that's absolutely correct. Case study is one of them. Marvin says experiment. Experimental research is different from descriptive research. This is not experimental. This is descriptive. They're 2 different types. Because I'll give you a hint again. Descriptive doesn't show a cause. Experimental research can show cause, but not descriptive. So Jerry gives me all 3 types. He says observation, case study, survey. That's absolutely correct. Those are the 3 types. So what is the purpose of descriptive research? Why would anyone want to do descriptive research? Why would anyone want to have an observational study or a case study or give out a survey? What does that serve to do? What's the point? Okay, so Jerry says to describe behavior. Nicole says to show people's natural response. And Marvin says to seize changes in behavior. And then T Sizzle in the end says a questionnaire for a group of people's input. All right, so there's a common theme with all of those. Is that yes, it describes behavior. It shows people's natural responses or how people feel about a topic which would be the survey. So yeah, it just shows people in natural habitat, basically, in natural situations, where in experimental research, something is being changed. The researcher is intentionally changing something just to see a certain outcome, to see if there's a cause. But in descriptive, we're just seeing things how they are. So that's why it's helpful in this situation for a research psychologist to use descriptive research, because the psychologist just wants to see the behavior changes associated with head trauma. So now that we know the three types, which are observational, case study, and survey, which method do you think is best for the psychologist to use when studying Harlow? Marvin says case study. Why do you say case study would be the best for Harlow? T Sizzle also says case study. Why do you guys think case study is the best choice? It's okay if you're not sure. I just want to see your reasoning for it. It could be right. Maybe it's not right. I just wanted to see what you were kind of thinking to see about that one. Or no, Sebastian, sorry, you said observation, okay. Marvin says, I say case study because it's a specific observation on a person and the way they act. All right, but think about the definition of a case study, the specifics of it. Yes, that's the absolutely correct definition. Is a case study is a close examination of a specific person, or also a group. Okay, you can also do a case study on a group, just to add on to what T Sizzle said. All right, so we have all those responses. Now we're going to go into the actual correct answer. Oh, and also, just in case you guys are rock stars, you all already knew the three types. But just in case anyone didn't, there's case study, survey, and then lastly, there's observational method. Hopefully, I don't think I put transition, so hopefully this doesn't give the answer. All right, it gives the answer, but oh well. You guys, some of you already got it right anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But, so, just the definition of descriptive research method. So, descriptive research is research that determines the who, the what, the when, the where. I don't know why I worded this so weirdly. The who, what, when, where of a situation. Whereas, also, descriptive research does not determine a cause. That is strictly experimental. So if you ever see like a multiple choice question on the AP Psychology test, and it's like, can this sort of, well, it'll be like an example. If you ever see something about descriptive research and cause, just know it's wrong, because descriptive research cannot show cause. So if there's ever a multiple choice question or anything about that, just know that it's wrong. Only experimental can show cause. And then, like we said before, there are three types. There's the case study, the survey, and the observational method. And the definition of case study is studying one person or a specific group in great detail. And then the next one is survey, which is a questioning sample of people to collect information about behaviors and attitudes, as well as observational method, which is observing and recording behavior without trying to manipulate or control the situation. So in that case, you probably already read the next one, but after you know all those definitions, what do you think the correct answer is now? I'm sorry, I did not print transitions on like I thought I did, so it showed the actual answer. But if you didn't look, or if you changed your mind, what do you think it is now? Okay, so Marvin changes his answer to observational method, okay. So everyone else is keeping their same answer? All right, cool. So if you said observational study, you are absolutely correct. That is the right answer. Oop, what happened? Okay, sorry. I think I clicked something. So if you chose observational method, that is absolutely correct. And so does anyone know why it's observational method and why not case study? Not a survey. Why doesn't she want to use a survey or a case study? remember her goal again, or his or her goal, because it doesn't specify about the researcher. But remember their goal again. Their goal is to find out about how their behavior changes due to head trauma. So why an observational study? Why not a case study? Why not a survey? Why? Okay, because you don't want to manipulate any variables. Okay. Any other answers? Because we aren't manipulating or controlling the situation, we are only observing how the injury causes head trauma. Okay. Any other guesses or answers to why it's a... So Sebastian says, case study is meant to explain a specific event that happened to a specific person. Observational study is far more general and would help gather more general data about head trauma. Okay. And then Jerry says, a survey's results could be impacted by the head trauma as Harlotte will be completing it. Yes, that's true. Any other answers? I just thought that one was funny, so I laughed at that one because I was like, yeah, that's absolutely true. And you concur with Sebastian in case study. Okay, great. Yeah, that's absolutely, Sebastian, that was a great answer about the distinction between the two. Yes, case study is meant to explain why a specific event happened to a group of people or a person, and just to study that study that with a case study, like if something happened. I'm trying to think of a case study. Do you guys know about Jeannie? I think that was her name. Have you learned about Jeannie in AP Psychology yet? Or watched her movie? Okay, so Marvin says no. Nicole says yes. Okay, so great. If you haven't seen the movie or heard of Jeannie, yes, Jeannie was a little girl, and her parents actually locked her away in a room for, I don't know the exact age she was. Do you know, Nicole? I don't know the exact age she was when she got out of the room. Yeah, basement for 13 years. So she was locked in a room or a basement for around 13 years. So she didn't really learn the behaviors that most of us learn at younger age, like speaking and behavior and everything like that. So she couldn't speak or understand language or anything like that because she was locked away in a room. So I brought that up because, yeah, she missed the critical period for language. That is absolutely why they wanted to perform a case study, because they wanted to see if she could get that back. I don't think she ever did, though. I think she was able to say some words and some sentences, but she can never really speak fluently, really, I think, ever. Yeah, if I remember correctly, the history. I don't think she was able to. But yes, so researchers, psychologists, they had a case study to observe, basically, Jeannie. And like Sebastian said earlier, a case study is a specific event, and that event was that her being locked away. And then, so yeah, they were just trying to explain and see what was wrong, what happened, how could it be changed with trying to help her learn language back again. But yeah, that would be an example of a case study. So that's a good example just to remember what it is. And yeah. So now you know the difference between that and observational. So yeah, that is why the researcher here wants to use observational, because they just want to observe how their behavior changed because of the head trauma. So is that clear to everyone? Of why it's a observational study? All right, okay, cool. I see yes and absolutely. Great. Okay. So now I'm going to go into the AP acceptable answer to get the question correct on the test. Okay, so here my sample answer is. Here's my sample answer. So, a descriptive method of research determines the various qualities of research, such as the who, what, when, and where of a situation, and not a cause. A certain type of descriptive method is the observational method. The observational method observes and records behavior without manipulating the situation. Therefore, the best descriptive method that would be best to study Harlow would be the observational method, because it would allow the psychologist to see how Harlow's behavior has changed from the trauma and her true nature. So basically, the psychologist just wants to observe Harlow to see if any of her behavior has changed because of the incident, because of the trauma. So that answer would be full credit, or sorry, I need to stop saying full credit because there is no partial credit on the exam, but that would be the acceptable answer to get the answer correctly, to get the question correctly on the AP exam. So does anyone have any questions of how or why that's the correct answer, or why that would be an acceptable answer? And if with reading any of these, if you're kind of like, I would say something different, or I would word it differently, just let me know what you would say, and I would tell you if that's correct for the AP test or not. Like if you were thinking about answering in a different way, I would tell you if that would be credited or not on the test, if you ever wanted to know. But yeah. So once again, so Marmot test, I would say very similar, but my problem is defining the words. So what do you mean define? Do you mean that? So I'm trying to think of how I can help you with that. Or remember, remembering what they are is a huge part. That's why I put the slide earlier about make sure you know your concepts and your topics. When I took the AP Psychology exam, I actually bought some flashcards on like Amazon. There's like 500 of them, so it's a lot. It took me a while to go through them, but I just drilled myself with the flashcards to make sure I knew every single topic and concept, so I would not forget. But that's how I did it. But Jerry also says mnemonics. Sure, that may work for you, but I just like to use repetition and making sure I know all of them by using flashcards. So whatever works. But I use flashcards to make sure I didn't have trouble defining any other words, because that is a huge part of being successful. You want to know all your topics and concepts. It's a lot, but that's why it takes a lot of study. And I'm sure you guys will all do great though if you follow those steps that I put earlier. A problem I sometimes have is overestimating how good my writing should turn out. Sometimes I go out of my way to use better wording, avoiding to be verbs, etc. Yes, it doesn't have to be like amazing grammatical, great English, and it's just as long as you answer the question and do like I said, to identify, to define, and apply, they're going to give you the credit. It doesn't have to be written beautifully like an AP Lang with like all this nice, I don't know, like pizzazz and everything with what you say. As long as you answer it in sentences, full sentences, and make sure that you do those 3 parts, you're going to be just fine. And make sure you know the concepts, of course. But as long as you do that, you're going to be just fine with answering the question and getting the credit. All right, so back to this question again, just to make sure you guys are clear about everything. I want you guys to mention all 3 parts of what I did here in the text box below. So how did I identify, how did I define, and how did I apply the topic in the situation? So don't do the ID part because we already did that. I identify it as a descriptive method, but how did I define it and how did I apply it to the situation? Just make sure you guys are clear on how to do that. So how did I define it and how did I apply it? All right, great. I see you guys are helping each other in the chat below. That's great. That's absolutely amazing. That's what we're all here for, to all help each other. Because if you're all gonna do well together on the AP exam if you're taking it. Like I said, if you're taking it, be sure to register soon, because I think every state has a different time. I'm not sure, but I know in my state it's in November, which is much earlier than it has been in past years. So make sure you don't forget to register, so you don't have to pay late fees. But did anybody hear the last part of what I mentioned? I wanted you guys to do to define. How did I define? How did I apply? I'm only asking to make sure you guys are clear about that part. Probably a lot to type, so I'll give you a few moments. Okay, so Jerry says I defined not just what descriptive research is, but the 3 components. Great, that's true. And then you apply the one it is asked for to the given situation. You identify what type of descriptive method was used, observational, then you define observational, and then refer back to Harlow's situation. All right, so yeah, that's great. Those answers are great. So I just didn't jump into saying, okay, well, the observational method here is, the descriptive method here is case study. It's observational method because blah, 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 Harlow, blah, 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 blah. No, I mentioned descriptive method, the different, and then I mentioned descriptive method, what it shows, and then I got into and then I described it, then I applied it to the situation. I just didn't jump right in to saying, okay, it's observational method, and here's why. So yeah, the defining part is huge. So Marvin says, you applied by using your knowledge of descriptive methods and how it is used for Harlow's situation. And Sebastian says, defined by making sure what needed to be assessed, single out the terms, applied later terms to answer the question and tie it in with the situation. This being Harlow's head trauma. That is great. Great answers, everyone. Absolutely great. You guys are going to do so well on the AP test. All I see is 5s. Everyone's getting a 5 here. You guys are rock stars. Those are great answers. That is exactly what I did. And if you do that too, you will be very, very, very successful on the AP test. 5 gang. That's absolutely correct. All 5s here. Did I get a 5? No, I actually got a 4. I did not get a 5. But I don't know how close I was because they don't give you your scores back. But remember that the tests are also graded on a curve. So maybe the curve wasn't that great when I took it because everyone else in my school also got 4s. Even the valedictorian, and the salutatorian, isn't that what they're called? The second person. Even the top 2 people in the class didn't get 5. So I don't know, but I got a 4. Nicole said that's still good. Thanks. Yes, I did study a lot. Thanks. Yeah. Just remember that you are not defined by your test score. If you study really hard and you know the content well enough, that 4 is great. Or even if you get a 3, like don't be defined by your test score. You worked hard throughout the year to study whatever topic it is. So don't get bummed out if you don't get the score you want. But still, it's just nice to have a 5, because it makes you feel good too to say like, wow, I really mastered the content. But yeah, don't let yourself be defined by a score though. But still, you guys are getting 5s. So hopefully, with this stream. Okay. Now we're going to do the last part. So once again, it's the same situation. I don't think I need to read it again. Probably you guys already know what happened. All right, now part C. After several months of recovery, Harlow has begun to regain many functions lost in the accident. Explain how each of the following might play a role in her recovery process. An fMRI, brain plasticity. Oh, that's the only, oh, don't look. Okay, sorry. I forgot those only 2 things. All right, so fMRI. We identify fMRI. Now define it. Define an fMRI in the chat. What is it? What does it do? What does it show? Okay, Marvin says it's functional magnetic resonance imaging. Any other answers? Jerry says shows areas of brain activity. Sebastian says creates an image of brain activity. Any other answers? All right, so shows area, that's absolutely correct. and brain plasticity isn't when the brain is split between the right and half, and one gains the functions while the other side has lost. That feeds into it. That's also like specialization. Like if you were to lose, because that has happened to someone. If you lose, or if your right doesn't work that well, you strengthen the functions in the other side. That is true. So that ties into it, because I was going to go into that one next, but I'll go ahead and define that one. It's just the ability of the brain to change. So yes. Yeah, rewire itself to change, to adjust. That's what brain plasticity is. All right, but back to the fMRI. So what is the major thing that you all missed? You gave me great answers about what it is and what it shows. It shows brain activity. Jerry says it shows brain activity, but how does it show brain activity? How? There's one major part you guys are missing with that answer. One major thing that it shows the activity, like how does it do it? Shows functions of the parts of the brain. Yes, it does. But by how? If you guys don't get it, I'll say it in a few seconds. But all right, bingo. Jerry says blood flow. That is absolutely correct. So it shows areas of brain activity by how blood is flowing in different areas. So if there's blood flow and like the middle part of the brain during memory tasks, you might believe that the middle part controls memory or deals with memory. So yes, by blood flow, it shows how there's areas. By blood flow, it shows brain activity. Is that clear to everyone by what I mean by that? So if there's a lot of blood flow in one area or blood flows from one area to another, it shows activity in that area during certain tasks. Does that make sense? I kind of worded that weirdly, so I can reword it if you want me to, but yeah. So I guess everyone's clear about that because no one said they weren't. All right, great. And we kind of already did a brain plasticity part 2. So does anyone have any questions about that? Or what brain plasticity is? Okay, I don't see any no's or anything. So, okay, cool. So I guess you guys are all clear about those. Okay, so now we've identified them. We've also defined them, so you know what's next. Go ahead and do it for fMRI. Apply it to the situation. This is going to be a longer answer, so I'll give you guys a few moments to apply the fMRI to the situation. So fMRI. So Jerry says, specifically to her recovery, it would help clarify which areas are most affected and would be used to investigate her progress. This progress would also be the plasticity as she heals and neural connections are reworked. All right, so the fMRI answer, I'm going to read that one first because that's the first part we're doing. I'll go back to the second part when we do brain plasticity. But affected to investigate her progress. So yes, that's absolutely true. It says in the question that she's begun to regain many functions that she lost in the accident. So A neurologist can use the fMRI to see if that's true, if she has regained area in those functions by having her perform certain tasks, and to observe if there is blood flow in those areas of her brain to see if those parts of the brain that control certain functions are active with blood flow. So yes, that's absolutely correct. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, cool. So I don't see that anyone has questions about that. Great. And then, so do the same thing again. And for brain plasticity, go ahead and apply it to the situation. If anyone else wants to answer, I'll give some time. All right, so I don't think anyone else is answering. So I'll go ahead and give brain plasticity is how the brain attempts to repair itself. Yes, so that is true, how the brain can change and develop. Yes, I mean, if it was injured, yes, that is brain plasticity. And then back to Jerry's, yes, that's acceptable answer. All right, so I'm not sure that's exactly what I put, but I'll go ahead and show what I put now. Okay, so back to the fMRI one. fMRI measures brain activity by tracking changes in blood flow. So once again, here is an AP answer. An acceptable AP answer would be an fMRI measures brain activity by tracking changes in blood flow. During certain tasks, the part of the brain being utilized can be detected from the blood flow of one part of the brain to the other. An fMRI may play a role in Harlow's recovery process because the blood flow in her brain can show the functions which Harlow has regained and the functions that she can regain. So that's the answer for that one, and that would be, you would get that correct on the AP test if you answered it that way. All right, so I think everyone's clear about the fMRI part. Now I'm going to go into brain plasticity part. So once again, what is brain plasticity? And that is the brain's ability to change and adapt as a result of experiences. And functional plasticity is the brain's ability to move functions from a damaged area of the brain to undamaged areas. So I remember someone earlier said, I didn't want to give away the answer, but someone earlier mentioned about if one part of the brain was injured, and so like the right side and the left side becomes and the I'm going to actually go back to what you said so I don't mess up your words or how you said it. The brain is split right and left, and how one gains the functions the other one side lost. So yes, if the brain is damaged, it can move functions to the undamaged areas. So yes, that is called functional plasticity. So great, you were on to it, you know the term, but that is the correct term as functional plasticity. So now an acceptable answer on the AP test for the brain plasticity would be that brain plasticity is the brain's ability to change and adapt as a result of experiences. More specifically, functional plasticity is the concept that the brain has the ability to move functions from a damaged area of the brain to undamaged areas. Brain plasticity may have a role in Harlow's recovery process because her brain may be able to move functions from the damaged parts of her brain to the non-damaged parts. So that's how I decided to answer it, because I decided to also use brain plasticity and functional plasticity to explain how with brain plasticity, she may be able to move the damaged parts of her brain to the undamaged parts. So all of you who said those things earlier, absolutely correct. That is an acceptable AP answer, or AP test answer. Is that clear to everyone? This is the last part, by the way. You guys did that so well. That whole FRQ. We're finished, basically. So does anyone have any final questions about anything, or any question about any of the concepts we went over? Because, yep, that's how you would answer it. All right, so I don't see anybody's questions. I'll give a few more moments. No, it was clear. I understood everything. It was just harder. Yeah, I feel that. I understand. But it's good practice to reinstill some of these topics because they will definitely be on the AP test. Super clear and straightforward. Amazing teacher. Thank you. Thank you so much. That is very kind. So yeah, that's the end of the stream, guys. You guys did amazing. Rock stars, absolutely. You answered those questions so well. But if you did what we did today, and you remember that acronym IDA, you will do so well on the AP test. So yeah, it's great to go back and review previous concepts, absolutely. So yeah, just remember what we learned today, guys, and you will do amazing on the AP test. So well. So that's it, guys. So thank you so much for participating in the stream and watching me teach this stream today. And yeah, that's really it today. So bye, guys. Thank you again for participating. I'm so glad that you all chose to show up. It was a great stream today. So enjoy the rest of your night. And yeah, have a great day, rest of the day. Bye, everyone.